Good morning, everyone who is watching this TelecomTalk live show today. Music streaming is everywhere today. By the way, people access and pay for it varies hugely by market. But what most users never see is the powerful telecom infrastructure, platforms, and music technology stacks working silently behind the scene to make it all happen. From carrier billing and content licensing to discovery, personalization, large-scale distribution, telecom plays a critical role in how music reaches and converts millions of users globally. Today, we have not one but two special guests who sit right at the heart of this transformation. We are joined by Mr. Raso, founder and managing director of Tune Global, one of the world's leading B2B music technology platform, powering teleco-owned and teleco-bundled music service across multiple regions, as well as music experience for media groups, aviation, gaming, health, and whatnot. Alongside Con, we are also joined by Ms. Virginie C, VP Head of Marketing Communication at Tune Global, who leads global positioning and ecosystem storytelling for the company. Not to explain further, like the Tune Global renewed its strategic partnership with West Music to support across UAE, Saudi Arabia in collaboration with Telecom Gen and following strong traction in Egypt. This marks the most important milestone for MENA digital entertainment ecosystem. Con and Virginie, welcome to the Telecom Talk show.
Hi,
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So, Con, people who are watching the show right now, tell us what exactly is Tune Global. Let's start with that here.
So we are a music cloud platform. So there's a lot of moving parts when you're trying to bring music into any sort of service. So whether, as you mentioned, it's airline, gaming, or telecom, like we are speaking about today, we provide all the technology and licensing infrastructure, rights management, everything that you need to actually be able to create and provide a service. And we go fairly deep into search and recommendations, billing integration, subscription, etc. So if you're looking to do something with music, we have the platform that then allows you to be able to do what you're trying to execute.
And Con, can you briefly walk us through your journey, how Tune Global evolved into a global music technology platform? What is it today?
Yeah, I mean, our journey started probably about 12 years ago or so, and we at that time we were still doing physical CD duplication through robotic systems that we created. And as people would here would know, what is a CD, right? These days, who knows? So we looked at how do we actually start to build toward the future. And we partnered with the music industry in starting to develop streaming infrastructure and streaming platforms before that was really a thing, if you like, right? I would say what makes us uniquely different was our journey. So while we started in Australia, we fairly soon went out into Southeast Asia and particularly into Indonesia and the region through that area. And there we partnered with a number of local labels and created our own direct-to-consumer service, which Virginie will speak a little bit later, but Virginie was pivotal in being able to bring 4 million users onto that service. That changed us from the concept of just being a technology provider to really understanding what it was going to take to acquire customers, retain customers, communicate with customers. And we think that really forms the DNA of who we are as a company today. To give you a bit of an idea of our breadth, though, at the moment we have over 200 million audio assets. We manage over 10 billion sets of rights for those audio assets, depending where they're being listened to around the world. And as you mentioned, even though telco is really a focus today, we think the experience across multiple markets makes us more interesting and valuable. So we do understand how music is used, say, in gaming or back of seats in an airline or for a background music service. And this experience really helps us a client about how to fit a service correctly for their user base. So these days we are global. We've got teams in Australia, in the Philippines, UK, Sweden, the US, and a number of other markets as well. So we very much look after global clients today.
So you also recently renewed your partnership with Music for probably, I believe it's for 3 years, and expanding into Egypt, into UAE, Saudi Arabia. So what makes this partnership strategically important for Tune Global or for Twist in the regional music ecosystem?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we came out of that renewal from powering the elements of the Twist service for the past 2 years. So it's become a really long-term partnership. And we really strongly invest in the vision of our clients. So we want to understand what they're trying to do, and then we want to build upon our existing system so they get greater and greater traction. If you look at Twist and as a company, they're really been shown that they're committed to being able to do something special with their music service, right? And they started off in Egypt, but now they're expanding across across the region. And what is really important for us is the ability to be able to innovate together, right? There are differences in how music is consumed in different markets. In MENA, we believe there's a really large opportunity for whether it's artists, companies, or platforms. And for us, Twist is really leading a lot of that innovation in the region. So we really value being able to work together with a company such as that to really be able to, I guess, bring their vision to life, but also be able to ideate on what is it going to take to actually move this service even to be more successful than it is today.
Okay, so Virginie, Tune Global works closely with telecom operators across various different markets. From a marketing and positioning perspective, how do you support telcos turn music from a simple feature into a real brand engagement differentiator? What's your role exactly?
So, like the role of Tune Global and my role is not directly running the telco marketing, because that's their strengths. They know their markets, they know their users, they own their brand. But it's more advising them based on the experience we have across the world with other clients, understanding what make a music streaming service successful. So we have seen firsthand how it worked, because as Con was saying, we have run our own service when we went to Indonesia, and we learned the hard way, because we discovered what works, what doesn't work. And although you can reach 4 million users by doing big campaign acquisition, you can also understand how hard is it to retain and engage with those users and make them listen every day, because you might have the best streaming services on earth. The reality is on their phone, people have like 200 apps, and that's where your competition is. It's not necessarily Spotify, your competitor, but it's also the app for dating, is the app for gaming, it's the app to watch video, right? So how do you emerge in that ecosystem? But I think when they treat it as a product and not just a ticker box for giving a little reward, a little nuggets to bring them, it's where you see the difference. So you have the short-term approach of, I'll give Spotify free 6 months, join my mobile plan and get 25 for free 6 months, or you have free data for music streaming. That works, but it's really a reward strategy, and you promote someone else's service. Where we're seeing now, and especially with Twist here, is like how it becomes really part of the telco identity and how they own it. And what drive that, I think there is also the power of data, because they are going to use that to understand their users, their customers, who is the service is for, what And when we can cross those data of streaming with the business data, it become even more powerful, because you can understand, oh, maybe these type of demographics listening to this type of content is actually using more data or using a premium plan for mobile. So when they can connect that, that can help them. And so we're going to guide them with that, give them the tool, especially share our experience and help them with the technology like discovery, recommendation, reward strategy to help these engagements, social features including into it so they can connect fan and artists in the region, how we can support the lifecycle engagement so people continue. So really our role is the tool, the framework, and the expertise. Their role is really positioning, execution, messaging, and the editorial that go with it.
Okay. So, Con, from your global experience, how do you see relationship between mobile operators and music streaming platforms, like particularly as telcos are looking for bundling third-party apps to owning or co-creating the experience? Like, so,
Yeah.
what's your take on it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of the items that Virginie mentioned, I might repeat because I think they're really important in this question. I I I think that there is a great amount of value in the operator either owning the platform, meaning owning the brand, the music brand, or being able to influence the platform if they don't own it. So maybe they're working with a couple of other telcos to actually create something special. Going back to what Virginie said, I think it's a sugar hit to actually give someone a giveaway, and that giveaway, how if we look at how telcos have traditionally looked at this across different places in the world, they've perhaps done a bundle, which is another brand, another streaming service as part of that telco offering. And when at the minute you do that, you've got the goodwill of your customer. But the minute after you do that, the customer's forgotten about it, and now they are connected to that other brand. And I do think there's those two parts that you really miss out on. You miss out on being able to understand the user yourself, and you miss out on what Virginie was speaking on, which is the data flywheel, right? So I think streaming services and telcos, I believe there's a very big opportunity for telcos. If we look at, say, the last 15 years, I would say in the last 15 years, about 15 years ago, telcos rushed to the market to actually have music services. Where they faltered was often they weren't music experts and they were approaching this from a purely technological process, not from an experience process. What happened then is for a while they experimented with giving away other services. And I think most of them have realized what we just spoke about, that data loss is critical, or to be able to retain that data is critical. They've now come back and actually saying, okay, so how do we actually truly build an ecosystem? Now, sometimes we see this as simply being a music application. Sometimes we see it across the world as being what we would be calling a super app, where it's got a lot of other functionality built into there. So they're actually building music and videos, sports and gaming, all within that single experience. And that, I just think that's gold, because if you think about it, when was the last time you interacted with your telco's product? Maybe you checked how many minutes you've got left. Maybe you checked your data plan. But if the telco was now providing you with a music streaming service, how often are you now connected to that same company? And I think that is absolutely the opportunity.
And Con, like one more thing I want to understand is like you guys are offering like 500 APIs and white label app solution covering streaming infrastructure, licensing workflow that you explained, like bill integration, analytics, personalization.
Yeah.
From a telecom, like what is the biggest technical or commercial advantage of partnering with a company like Tune Global instead of building everything in-house? Like, so if you can
Yeah,
explain,
absolutely.
that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a few. First of all, there's the experience in actually developing a music or multiple music services around the world. That experience within a company like Tuned is incredibly deep. We have people that have, assisted many customers that are similar or have similar challenges throughout the world. Why make the same mistake twice? And I think that would be common for people not to want to do that. So music experience is absolutely one. The other one is speed to market. So if you're looking at developing the infrastructure, right? Like I can tell you from our own, I was the tech founder of a business and I can sometimes go a little bit too much towards the technical and I want to avoid that. But when we're ingesting at the maximum speed, we have over 1,000 machines ingesting at any one time. We couldn't develop that type of infrastructure in a month or 2 months. It was done over years. And I think being able to have the ability to tap into a company like us that has the scale that you need, it has the security and compliance that you need. And when I'm talking about compliance, I do mean the rights compliance from the music itself. You don't want to expose yourself from a rights compliant area, and we manage that entire process for you. I think the other one is definitely R&D. So if we look at, say, search and recommendations for ourselves, that is such a critical area that if we've got time, I'd love to speak more about what the value of search and recommendations are. But we have a team dedicated only to search and recommendations. Now, most companies can't afford to do that. And so they have substandard products. But here, companies are able to take that advantage from us. I'd say the last one is cost, although it's probably the biggest impact. In many cases, we can save people as much as 70% of their costs of doing it themselves as opposed to using us. And that's a tremendous capability that, for no doubt, we would say from our side, and Virginie as well, we would say, take that money and put it in marketing. Marketing is going to differentiate you, not did you build your platform or are you using someone else's platform for that purpose?
Okay. So, Virginie, based on what you have seen across different markets, like how important is local storytelling, culture relevance, and language first experience in driving adaptation of music? Like, what's your take on that? Like,
I think it's very high impact, especially outside the US and the Western world, I would say, because like the local relevance is probably going to beat the global scale and what is going to make you unique in your market. What we saw that constantly work, I guess, will be local catalog that can be surfaced properly. Because of course there is a global DSP in every market now, pretty much, saying that Spotify is not everywhere yet in some emerging country in Africa. But they want to have this big power of having this local catalog and precision into search and recommendation. Coming back to Colin was saying, the first search discovery. When, like, if we take Twist, they can search in Arabic, and that's come with some challenges. Also for Western apps, we try to enter those markets, different alphabets and different way to read. So they need to be prepared with that. The fact that those playlists that are created every day, the tutorial of the app is suitable for the region. Understanding your demographics, the culture is so different. I remember when we went to Indonesia, I had to hire someone, a marketing person in the country, to help me, because although I have 10 years plus of experience running digital businesses, well, it was not enough to understand how an Indonesian person is thinking, how an Indonesian person is talking, and all these background that only a local person will really get. And that's why I come back to it's important for the telco to run their marketing because they understand that better than us. And I think there is also support in the local scene. We have some clients, or we have Twist in the MENA region, but we also work with a company like another streaming service in Ethiopia or in Greenland with a telco called Tusas. And they have a strong position also on supporting their local scene, their local industry, and the local artists that struggle to make money sometimes on big platform because of the way the royalties are shared. And they get a place now where they have a premium positioning. So that helped them, I think, like getting cutting outside, like getting on this localization is what is going to help them make successful. Saying that there is just a little approach of the clients in other country where in the US, for example, we have a client, Gab. They are going to focus on the demographic and not on the local content. And the demographic in their case is kids because they provide kids technology. So there is a kids first music streaming services. So it can be also an approach that some telco can think of, not just in the US, in the rest of the world. If they have an audience of senior, more kids or family, is there an opportunity for them to own a specific niche? I think that help them to differentiate.
And I would just add to that, Tarun, in the past, we powered the Idea music service in India until there was the merger with Vodafone in that particular market. And similarly, in that market, as you would very well know, how music is consumed is tremendously different to how music is consumed in our markets. So we were very forward in how we actually built systems that allowed people to search based on actors or other places they may have seen content and then link to that content rather than being an artist first view. So I do think, language is an important part of it, but I think there's a lot of other ways that are different in how people connect and communicate that you have to be really conscious of. Japan may not be quite as forward with how they might share comments, but they do want to consume a lot of information about what they're listening to. Very different to the US perhaps or other markets in that space. So it is understanding that. I think we do a lot to do that, to understand that, but I think ultimately it is the client who really understands their market deeply. If I just expand on one thing that Virginie said, if we look at Twist particularly and Arabic, what our system can be built upon. So if there's clients that want to build additional functionality on top of our system, they can actually do that. In the case of Twist, they really wanted to drive deeper search through what I'm going to say is the Romanized Arabic versions being how artists are called. And they weren't called strictly what you would type in Arabic. Their name was effectively Romanized in Arabic, right? It's a very different problem. Right? Do the major music platforms invest in that solution? Not so much, right? Whereas a hyperlocal operator such as Twist is able to bring a much better experience to their users through that methodology.
So, Con, what role will Teleco bundle play in accelerating paid music, adapting across MENA regions over the next, let's say, for example, in 3 or 5 years from now?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting when you look at that. I think if you look at E&, specifically for who owns the Twist service, they've shown that they are providing a lot of services in the lifestyle space. So there's been a lot of acquisitions and other things that they provide that are in that lifestyle space. And music and entertainment is a key part of them growing their brand from being perceived as potentially just telecom through to a much bigger brand in the region, right? And I think the beauty of music is that music is a connector that keeps people engaged. So you can offer them something that's really interesting in that space to keep them engaged. Now, whether it's subscription or advertising or other elements like that, I think that's a really interesting question. You know, one of the areas we've been experimenting with, Tarun, in London, is that we've been, and this isn't for a telco operator at this stage, we've been actually generating ads within using AI, audio AI, 20 seconds before the ad is required to be delivered, which means we're hyper-targeting advertising to a user and a geography. Now, what's that actually mean? It means that besides hopefully the user getting something that's much more relevant for them, it also commands a much higher eCPM, right? And so now the telco can actually generate a higher revenue through advertising services than they previously could before. And I think the emergence of, I'm going to say in a really general term, the concept of AI, and it was one of the major reasons why we purchased about 4 months ago an AI company called Figaro.ai, so that in the core of our platform, we could actually build integrated AI solutions that really would reach out and help for either better conversion, better monetization, better elements like that. I probably would just finish that question on one item. I don't think there's any better way to connect to a user than through telecom. If you look at how our social elements are constructed today, and almost everyone having a phone, everyone has a connection point through a telecom. I would argue more than perhaps any other utility in the world. So being able to build upon that, I actually don't think there's ever been a better time to be able to do that and monetize it, because the power that the telecom wields.
So you mentioned about the ad thing. So the ad will run before a person listens to the music every time?
Yeah, exactly. So in an ad, so our system supports ad-supported services, and some of our telco partners use ad-supported services. At the moment, how an ad-supported service would work is you would go to a marketplace and see what ad needs to run, and then target that ad and run it through to there. But what about if I actually knew where you were at the moment? What about if I could target the shops within 300 meters of where you were right now, and I could send you an ad in between songs of an offer that exists on your doorstep right now? Is that more valuable? And we can do it. So we're doing that today. So it's, I think the question will be, how does a telco use that capability now to be able to more deeply monetize in a market than they otherwise could? I will say, I think it's the early adopters that will take the lion's share of the market, because as all things AI at the moment, there's a lot of learnings to be had, but the people who've been learning for 6 months or 12 months are certainly in a much stronger position than the ones who are just starting that journey today.
Since we are talking about AI, like how big role AI-driven discovery, automation play is going to play in the next generation of music streaming? And I believe Tune Global already have this AI-led recommendation, auto mix, and I believe there is something called programmatic radio experience also. So can you just briefly walk these things are?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry for interrupting, Tarun. Absolutely. I think some of the experiences that we have, when you look at the core of AI, and I'll talk about those other products in a moment, really from the AI, until AI has become a more valuable component like it's being used at the moment, most people are using things that we would call collaborative filtering to make recommendations. What are people like me listening to, and then share that with me. And sometimes that can provide a really narrow channel of discovery. And when you think of some of the challenges that people talk about, some of the major platforms, it's like when it thinks on this genre, it just sticks me there and doesn't let me move beyond that, right? What we're doing with AI is that with the Figaro technology we purchased, we're able to analyze the music and understand the music, not just as a text level. It actually understands how this music relates to other music. So now we can actually show a much broader range of music to the user, and also use AI on the behavioral aspects. And what I mean by that is, what journey are users going through to actually listen to music? And how do I actually make that journey more valuable? How do I make that more successful? And I think these are all going to be givens in the future. Right. Now, you mentioned programmatic radio or auto mix IQ. Some of those are more recommendation systems and some of them are experience systems. So auto mix IQ creates a DJ mix between music so that people actually have something that's really differentiated and, in our opinion, superior to the largest DSPs on the planet. So that's wonderful. We can offer that to telcos to use right now. Whereas programmatic radio, that sort of relies on recommendations, because if you start Radio Tarun right now, typically you're starting it based on either a time of the day or an artist you like. But what about if we knew more about you from the wearables you had on at the moment? What about if we knew whether you were relaxing or whether you were active? And that programmatic radio experience now tailored itself for your use case. So if you're going to ask me where we were at the start, and you said, why would a telco not build it themselves? I think these questions are the root of why that is, right? Because it's not their business. Their business is how to actually create great telco products, not to create great music products.
Okay. So, Virginie, like, what role does marketing play in, like, let's say, for example, how a teleco operator can show this music product as a premium service rather than an add-on bundle? Like, so what role does the marketing plays? Like,
Good question, but I think premium perception, as you mentioned it, that's come from the experience, not the price. And like you being able to surface what might make your service qualitative, like strong recommendation. Sorry, we're repeating, but it's the core of that, like the good editorial, the curation, having consistent in-app engagement. So I just don't think that the marketing alone is enough, and it's really product and marketing that work together. As a baseline, you like a service that a telco is launching should at least feel the expectation of a user. Now you have like the same call ratio as a global DSP. Like you can't launch a service and not have offline, not have mixes, not have maybe the auto mix. That is a new announcement from Apple Music and Spotify that also we provide. But or also thinking the multi-format. We were talking about music, but really today on Spotify, you also have podcasts, you also have video, you have some live radio. So I think that is the core of the basics that a user is expecting, and you can't afford not having when you launch for being seen as premium. Otherwise, you're going to just be seen as a bit late into the race. But then when elevate that is what we're going to bring, like the personalization in terms of the content, the messaging, what you could bring that is specific to a telco. Maybe we saw that with Twist, but we were working also in Thailand with a telco through working on rewarding your active users, trying to make them play more and give them like a reward of being a good listeners. But there is also a thing that I think telco can add to that is the artist-fan interactions. Because you are focusing on this local scene, you have access to a pool of artists that is a bit closer to home and closer to you, and fans locally that like to support those artists. So how do you use your platform to connect them? We help them with some solution called social radio, but they can also run that through outside marketing campaign alongside like artist partnership. But in social radio, you will allow the artists, if they want to run a show, a bit like the live you are doing today on Twitter. Imagine it was an artist doing that, talking to their fans, and at the same time streaming music live and commenting on what they like or why they wrote this song. So I think sorry. Go. If you have a question. No, I lost the feel. I lost my feed, but it's okay. Tell me.
No, yeah. We also want to know, like what do telecom operators often underestimate when it comes to this growing a music service? Like after the launch, like what really makes it different between the initial uptake and the long-term engagement? What we have seen is that there would be an initial hype and then it just dies down. Like
Yeah.
maybe the problem.
So
thing
I think that.
So,
yeah, what we see every time is like the biggest misconception is launch equals success. So acquisition is a starting point. It costs money, but I would say it's easy. It's easy if you are like a good marketing team, you know how to run ads, you can do billboard. Like, it's not hard to have someone downloading an app. What is harder is making them keep it and continue using it. So the real growth drivers are going to be the retention and understanding for you which channel are acquiring the right users. And we have this experience in Indonesia where, you know, I could have choose using Google ads versus Facebook ads, for example. And thinking, oh, Google ads are cheapest users, but actually Facebook one was stickier. So then you make a decision based on your strategy and the budget you have. Like, do you go for the cheap one because you want to have a big volume of downloads, or do you go for the most expensive one, but they are going to stay longer, so you might generate a revenue later on differently? Because this repeat usage and the habit building is the hardest to do. And that's where we often try to work end to end with our client, offering them like some messaging tools and how to build user journey to message them the right time, recommending the right content. Because if every day you send a notification from an artist you don't care, like, you're going to turn off your notification and you lost the opportunity to connect with them. So yeah, often it's what is underestimated, I think, for me. And localization is one strategy, but if you can focus on being on your real differentiator and leverage that in your marketing, that's going to make your service different and evolve.
And Tarun, we were talking about Twist here. Twist here, and I think they're a great example of investing in a team that really is committed to continue to expand their music service. And so I think that has to be in the business plan and in the budgets. How do you actually make sure that you've got the team that can support it? I don't think that team has to be enormous, but it also is most likely, you know, it needs to have some expertise in marketing, data analytics, some other areas. And where you don't need a team these days, in our opinion, is in technology, unless you're developing something unique yourself.
Okay, so Colin, from a business perspective, where do you see the real revenue growth coming for a teleco integrated music platform? Is it going to be subscription, advertising, royalty, or a broader digital lifestyle bundle? Like,
Yeah, and I think going back to those items like that we're working on, I think if you look at globally, it's difficult to it's not difficult to generate revenue with advertising, right? So there's a lot of opportunities to generate revenue. It is difficult sometimes with your licensing cost to be able to make some sort of meaningful revenue from that process. Now, I'm not going to say that telecom operators always want to make revenue from the music. I think in a lot of cases, they've got a bigger opportunity in how do they actually grow their base and their ARPU generally. And so music is a strategic area that they can do that with. Now, that varies in our experience from client to client. Some want to actually build a standalone music service. Other ones say, no, we actually want to retain an extra 20% of our customers by doing that process. Keep in mind that on average, with music, what we've looked at various telco platforms, and on average in those telco platforms, when we're providing a music service, there's an engagement of over an hour a day with those music services. So you have an hour a day that you can actually engage in some meaningful way in that process. I would say though, Tarun, that bundling is probably the critical area where a telco can differentiate strongly. And that's because often of the challenges of billing in many markets, right? And the ability to make it really easy and sometimes cost effective, or sometimes it's just that it's just much easier and quicker to be able to bundle those services. I do think, as Virginie's been speaking, thinking about the items that really differentiate your service are critical. We know that people will subscribe to multiple video services, and I think the same opportunity is available with music services as well.
so Colin, this is the last question I have. Like, and
Yeah.
although we have questions coming up from the vendors and people, I'll just take a few questions. So, like, what we want to know is that if a telecom operator is watching this today, like this live podcast, they want to launch a branded music service quickly. What would be your top 3 strategy recommendations?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. I would say that number one, use experts. So leverage experts, whether they are in licensing or whether they're companies like us in technology. And where people often connect to us, and you often connect them to a licensing expert, depending which market they're operating in, so that they can get the licensing process figured through, right? Experts. I would say the second one would be to prioritize your dollars. And we mentioned this earlier, but in my opinion, marketing, engagement, retention are much more important than thinking, will I use my dollars to build tech? If you can buy it, don't build it. If you can rent it, don't build it, right? And the last one, in my opinion, is be very specific on what you're trying to achieve. Often we talk to clients and they've got this concept of building something that's successful. But the word success is really different depending on what you're trying to achieve. So I think having real clarity on what you're trying to achieve over a reasonable period of time, whether that be 3 years or 5 years, give yourself enough time to achieve it, enough budget to achieve it, but then be very clear on that. Because where that really helps is not just the telco, but our discussions through this journey to be able to go back to the core goals and say, how do we actually move forward with this and provide a better service?
So, Colin, we are getting a couple of questions. Like, I'll take one or
Sure.
two. I know it was extended a bit long. So, this is an interesting question, Colin. Like, so he has mentioned that I come from a fleet and aviation industry, and one of the biggest challenge we face is delivering a consistent, high quality onboard music experience. When
Yeah.
aircraft operate with a limited connectivity, strict licensing rules, and very little passenger level data. Unlike mobile users, passengers are anonymous and bandwidth is expensive for us, and content has to work reliably offline across multiple regions. So from your experience, like what we should be doing? Like we tried it, but the challenges what we are facing right now is related to the content doesn't get updated. We are still on very old content. So these are some of the
Yeah.
challenges we are facing. Like, so is there any solution from Tune Global perspective, or do you have any experience on this? This is one of one question that we got it on live, like as people were watching.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we power a lot of different airlines around the world with the back of seat experience for those airlines. And usually we're providing tools that enable those clients to curate their content and to be able to finalize their content in a way that makes its way into the in-flight systems. We either work directly with the airlines in some cases, or we work with intermediary partners that are really managing the in-flight experience for the airline. So that is what I would call a traditional experience, where you've got a back of seat airline experience. Licensing is complex, but companies like us can help you work through that process in there. There's no easy route around music licensing. I would love to say there is, but as soon as you want commercial music, there's a process to go through. What we do offer, though, is for especially low-cost operators. We actually, because part of what we do, we also provide turnkey experiences where content can actually be caged and linked in various ways to only being able to be used when you're on the airline, or potentially you might want to use that at destination as well, depending on the licensing restrictions. And we can provide that entire solution there. So it can be a bandwidth-friendly solution. I do agree that there's two challenges with airlines. The first one is that not all airlines have bandwidth, and we understand that it's expensive bandwidth. The second one is that if it is back of seats, the equipment can really vary between very modern equipment and very old equipment. But I think it is a case of looking at the specific use case and then working through there with clients. But it's doable. It's absolutely doable.
If I can just add, because we work for a client like Spafax, which is a content provider for airlines or Delta Airlines. And something that's the person who asked the question was talking is become the right in different countries, because you are on flight that cross different regions, so it impacts rights. So that is all embedded in what the solution that Con was discussing. Is not just licensing, talking to record labels and license, but it's also having the compliant the technology that make the content you use compliant with your licensing rights. So if you use a CMS like the CMS to create a playlist for Christmas for this flight going from Delhi to Singapore, let's say, and you are going to some of this airline, they want to export the playlist and then plug that in their in-flight system. But then our system will flag the tracks that can be used in that journey on that trip specifically. And it's very hard to achieve by yourself if you don't have all this metadata of understanding rights at the country level. And like we could spend hours discussing that. But look, if the person wants to discuss with us, we're happy to advise as much as we can, so they can reach out.
They can reach out to your contact us page, I guess. Like so. So, Con, can I take one or two questions? Is it okay? Like,
Sure.
or should we just? Yeah. Okay. So,
No, I'm good.
yeah. So the next thing, so Con, from a telecom operator, we have seen like many telco-led music service struggle or fail despite we are having a strong distribution and large subscriber base. The common issues what we face is that long-term engagement and poor conversion from free to paid users. So these are some of the difficulties what we are facing, but eventually then we have to cancel the bundling offer. Although there are players in the market, big players like Apple Music, Spotify, and others in the market, which are eating away the market share. So eventually, we have to partner with them or offer some bundle service. Like, so how it's different from Tune Global perspective? Like, are you any different, or you gonna give us a custom solution, and or even eventually we will end up failing?
Yeah,
That's
no,
like
it's a great question. It's a great question. I think you've certainly, going back to what Virginie said earlier, you do have to understand how you're going to differentiate yourself in the market. But what happened, I'm going to say, in the past is that often technology companies, not music companies, actually provide the interfaces and the solutions for people, right? But if you think about what we do, and I'll just expand one area that Virginie spoke about, which was targeting users directly. So the marketing tools that come with our product allow you to look at someone who perhaps hasn't engaged for 3 days, be able to look at their history. The system will pull out what you should recommend to them, and then be targeted recommendation for those users to be engaged. So I think in the past, it's often been an inferior product that telcos have actually provided. I absolutely think Twist stands out as an exceptional product. Twist uses their own front end and they use our APIs. Our other telco clients often use our own front ends that we can provide, which have feature parity with the major services that are out there. But the discussion still has to be, what differentiates you within this service? Is it features? Is it content? Is it potentially that you're karaoke-led rather than not karaoke-led? Is it that you're fan-base-led and that social radio, a feature that is not available with other services, becomes something that you can really bring forward? I think if your only question is, how do I do exactly the same thing as what my competitor is doing, I think our technology allows you to do something that is actually differentiated, and you don't have to fall into that hole.
Okay, so Con and Virginie, thank you so much. Maybe there are so many questions we can probably take up in January. Like the questions are flowing. Like, what is the use of AI? Like, is there any more bundling when it comes to like people are looking for like what they hear? Like there is something called Shazam. They want to integrate such kind of features, and there are a couple of features. Like, so maybe we can sit again, like probably in January, and maybe we can answer all these questions. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
would love to. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tarun. Thank you, Tarun. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Thank you.